morning. Here we go. Today we're going to do cognitive behavioral therapy, otherwise known as CBT. I'm going to read from a script and I'm going to try to speak a little faster. That's been my goal, and I haven't been doing, like everything else, I don't stick to practice. So, so much for perfect practice makes perfect. Anyway, cognitive behavioral therapy is a highly effective evidence-based form. Evidence-based, I question that in psychology, but it has a long history. So it is, historically, it's worked for those that it works for. It's a form of psychotherapy that focuses on the powerful connection between our thoughts, cognition, feelings, our emotions, and actions, behaviors. The core idea is that our patterns of thinking and behavior play a fundamental role in our emotions, in our emotional distress and life problems. By identifying and changing unhelpful or distorted patterns, we can improve our emotional well-being and develop healthier coping mechanisms or strategies. Cognitive behavioral therapy is collaborative, practical, and typically time-limited, focusing on solving current problems and equipping clients with the skills for the future. Now, that being said, it is not as much as people would like to believe, it is not a cure-all forever. People forget if they don't practice, and people don't practice. So this type of therapy needs to be implemented, practiced, reinforced, practiced, reinforced, practiced, revisited, practiced, reinforced, practiced, revisited, practiced, reinforced, so on and so forth. It is not a one-time. That's what people like to think, but it's not a one-time cure-all. So let's get that out of the way, and then people come to me and say, well, I went to a therapist, this blah, 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 blah. Yes, you did, and they were probably great, but they don't do miracles. And cognitive behavioral therapy, any kind of intervention that deals with your way of being, takes time. It takes a long time for you to change patterns. It takes a long time for adults to go from being obsessed with something to not being obsessed with something, to every day doing that ritual to never doing that ritual again, or decreasing that ritual. It is hard. So practice makes perfect. Practice, practice, practice. But people kind of our natural tendency is for the fault. Go to the mean, so to speak. We go to what is comfortable. And, as much as psychology, as much as psychotherapy would like to think, human beings are very imperfect creatures. And we like what we like. So I will continue with this statement, and which is why the difference between these types of therapy and long-term psychodynamic psychoanalysis are so different. Psychodynamic is a long-term type of intervention where you revisit profound patterns, you question those patterns, you develop a therapeutic alliance with the therapist, and you slowly implement change and reinforce that change with the therapeutic alliance. And think through why you implemented it in the first place. So let's start with the founders of cognitive behavioral therapy. And of course, even though Aaron Beck is the god of cognitive behavioral therapy, before him, Robert Ellis came up with rational emotive behavioral therapy. Ellis developed the first form of cognitive behavioral therapy with, rational therapy. The core concepts of rational therapy are that It's not the events that upset us, but our rational beliefs about those events. He called it the ABC model. Activating event, belief, consequences, emotional, behavioral. And the therapy involving disputing the irrational belief and creating a new effective philosophy. Easier said than done. Ellis was direct and confrontational, challenging clients' musts, shoulds, and awfulizing. In comes Aaron Beck. A psychiatrist, Beck made his discoveries while researching depression. He found that his clients experienced spontaneous negative automatic thoughts, the negative automatic thoughts, the automatic negative thoughts, the ants. The core concepts were that these automatic thoughts stem from deeper dysfunctional beliefs and schemas, core perspectives on our worldview, and they're formed in childhood. So he takes some of the dynamic and puts it into his therapy. Depression, anxiety, and other disorders are maintained by cognitive distortions, all or nothing thinking, catastrophizing. Beck's approach was more collaborative and Socratic, asking questions to guide discovery than Alice, who was very directive. He created structured protocols for depression, anxiety, and later personality disorders, which is where dialectical behavior therapy comes in. While Ellis focused on philosophical debate of irrational beliefs, Beck emphasized scientific testing of automatic thoughts. Their work merged into the broader family we now call cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. The first generation is behavior therapy in the 50s and 60s. The focus was purely on observable behavior. The premise was that behavior is learned and cannot be unlearned, and can be unlearned. Key interventions were exposure therapy for phobias, that's still the system, systematic desensitization, operant conditioning, Pavlov, remember, and skills training like assertiveness. Philosophy changed the behavior, and change will follow. Second generation, cognitive behavioral therapy, 70s and 90s. Focus is on integrating cognition, thought, and behavior. This is the classic cognitive behavioral therapy of Beck that became dominant. And Alice has but it's Beck. Key interventions: identifying and challenging automatic thoughts, negative automatic thoughts, or automatic negative thoughts, the ends, and cognitive distortions, developing rational responses, behavioral experiments, and activity scheduling. Philosophy changed the maladaptive thoughts and behaviors to improve feelings. It became the gold standard for treating depression, anxiety disorder, OCD, and more, and it didn't work for most people, especially for depression, especially for severe depression. And at this time, we have Prozac coming in, which became then the gold standard of psychotherapy. And now we're doing most psychotherapy in conjunction with psychiatry, with medications. I'll leave it at that. Then we have the third generation, the third wave of cognitive behavioral therapy from the 1990s to now. And it expands beyond thought content to changing our relationship to thoughts and feelings. Emphasis is on mindfulness, acceptance, values, and psychological flexibility. Philosophy: not all distressing thoughts need to be disrupted or disputed. Sometimes we can notice them, accept them, and still choose actions aligned with our values. Our goal is not necessarily to reduce symptoms first, but to live a meaningful life. System reduction comes afterwards or follows. The key difference here is that it's less focused on cognitive restructuring, more on mindfulness, metacognition, and the content of the experience. Now, acceptance and commitment therapy, which is what they're talking about, was developed by Stephen Hayes. And the goal was to develop psychological flexibility through 6 core processes: acceptance, cognitive diffusion, being present, self as context, values, and committed action. Its motto is accept what is out of our personal control and commit to action that enriches your life. Now, this is very subjective, and it both, to me, it both makes you a meek, powerless creature. No, there's nothing I can do about this, that, or that other thing. And I'm just going to commit to the aspects of interventions that enrich my life. It's very self-centered and not communally oriented at all, and it bothers me. But I do use it because it's very useful to use with people when I put it in context, and when I tell people mindfulness has a lot of manifestations. It's not sitting in a room breathing in and out with an empty mind like most people think. We can't stop thinking, we're always thinking. You have to go to some monastery in Burma to sit for 10 hours a day or 12 hours, 15 hours a day, breathing, sitting in uncomfortable positions, and sweeping floors to be a master at mindfulness. And most people don't have time for that because they need to make a living. There's a million variations now. I can't even, I mean, this would be going into what all the practices that are currently being used would be a task that is far beyond this, because what my objective for this is to be able to talk about these things and being comfortable in front of a screen, saying, my name is Manuela Mage and I'm a psychotherapist, which it seems like I'm doing it easier and easier. And this is exposure therapy. I have been doing what you're supposed to do, and thus I've gotten benefits outside of being able to say this simple thing for Psychology Today. I have been much more comfortable taking pictures, and as a result, I like the pictures that I'm taking because I'm comfortable. I'm no longer freaking out when somebody puts a camera in front of me. So it's okay. So it works if you work it, meaning that you have to practice. You have to be committed. And it has to be small actions, small practical actions that you have to develop a method. You have to think, how will this work in this situation with this person? Public speaking is a good example. How do we do public speaking? First of all, you have to find it important enough for you. And this is where the values driven comes in. If it's important enough for you it's part of a value. It's important to you. So it has high value. And so you're willing to commit to action. Committing to action means that you are willing to sit with discomfort for a little bit, talk in front of 3 people, and breathe. Just like what I did. I did it before I turned on, and then practice in front of 3 people. practice in front of 10, and next thing you know, you'll be able to do a TED Talk. So this is me doing cognitive behavioral therapy, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, without doing mindfulness. I hate doing mindfulness. I pray, and that's a form of mindfulness. Praying is definitely a form of mindfulness because you are focused on a higher goal than yourself. You are not involved with the ego and your immediate surroundings. So thank you for today. I think I did a little bit of combo of ad-libbing and reading from my script, and it worked out great.